Right, coming back over here, we did what I call declaring. What in the programming world is called declaring. You are making a variable. You're creating a variable named score. So the name of your container that you're going to store some value in is score. What you put in there is going to be a what? Integer. Because you put this int ahead of it. Okay? And there are several different types that you'll learn. Right now we're just going to use the most common one, integer. So we've made it. Have we given it a value? No. Normally when you start with a score, you start with what value? 0. So we want to typically give it a value, but you don't have to. You can say that variable is going to exist and then later give it a value. And that's what declaring is all about. So later in the game you might, have something that changes the value that then gives it a new value. Okay? But right now, does it even have a value? No, it's just a container. It's just like an open cylinder here with nothing in it. Everyone see that? If I was to try to print it out right now, everybody, we try a quick little system out print line. You can do this where you use a print line and put score inside. I'm going to keep the system out print hello world down here just so that you can copy and paste that print line and you don't leave out uppercase S, that kind of stuff. It's LN and not IN, just so you got the structure down. And now if that's the case and I want to print out score, what happens when I actually try to compile this? Well, let's see. I already got an error. Why? Let's read into the error. It says variable score might not have been, and let me move that recording thing, initialized. We didn't give it a value, did we? That's what that says. That's what that means. That means on this line 7, if I was to look at line 7, it says you can't print out something that doesn't exist, right? Okay, so then there's got to be a better way than just declaring. Declaring is typically, I'm going to make a variable and I know later I'm going to get a value and put in it, but I don't want to give it a value just yet. More often than not, you want to give it a value right from the beginning. Like in a game, you probably want to give it a score of 0. So I'm going to create a second variable right here, and I will just call it S. I'm trying to show you that you can make variables of any name. You can make them as basic as you want, letters, or as descriptive as you want, like score. I'm just going to call this S, which stands for another score. Okay, we're going to score in a second game, for instance, and I'm just going to call it S. But instead of just leaving it out to dry and not knowing what the value is, I'm going to give it a value. So the equal sign assigns it a value. And this assigns it a value to whatever value that you then put immediately afterwards. So what I'm saying is, I'm making a brand new variable named S that's going to stand for a score for a second game, and give it a value of 0. So that now it has a value, and if you try to print it out, it will always have a value, and you can increase that value, decrease that value, do whatever you want with it. Okay with us so far? That said, if I say system out print line S, do you think it's going to work then? It will work on this one, but there's still going to be an error up here until we fix it, right? So let's go ahead and put another system out print line S right underneath it so we can print the second one. And you notice this is sequential. The way programs are is I have to declare the variable before I can use it, right? I have to create the variable and give it a value before I can actually use it. This is still not going to work even if I update this to S. Why? Because we still have the error up here. Does everybody agree? How do I get rid of this error up here? Well, I was just basically showing you how it works, but if I comment out that line, it's not going to compile, right? It's not going to run. It's just showing you this wouldn't work anyways because I didn't initialize it. So I'm going to comment this out, and then I'm going to put after it, won't compile. And then maybe you'll think back when you go back to this line, it won't compile. Why won't it compile? You can go ahead and look back at it. You ever see that area? That error that says it's never been initialized, you know what it means. Okay? Why will this one compile? Because it has a value. What's the value? 0. So let's go ahead and say compile it and run it. This one should compile, and this should execute, and it should just print the value to the screen. Now watch. Many of you are probably saying, oh, I bet S prints to the screen. No. Because I'm not printing quote S quote. Let me show you the difference here. This I printed to the screen was S, right? And what is the value of S currently? 0. So if S is the name of my variable, and I assigned or gave it a value of 0 right in the beginning, there's a 0 stored in it. If I say system out print S, it prints out whatever value it has. Pretty cool, because now you can find out whatever the value is at any point in time, and now you can put the actual score up there. Now, let's go back and see what I'm talking about with that as to why it didn't print out actually S. I didn't want it to print out S. I wanted it to print out the value of S. If I go like this, system out print with quotes around S, well, it's going to print S. Do you see the difference? The major difference. This prints the value, whatever's in the variable named S, the first line. The second one just prints S. So if you want to print text, you put the quotes around it. If you want to print the actual variable value itself, you print it. You don't put quotes around it. And watch this. You can actually combine them into one line. So if I wanted to do something like this, system out print line, and then put the score is, that's inside quotes, right? That's text. It's going to print the score is. And then if I want to put the actual score after it, I can just say, give it a space so I can, when I put it after it, if I say the score is with a space inside the quotes, it says the score is and then puts a space there. Then if I'm waiting for the score afterwards, it's going to print whatever I then append to the end of it. See this little plus sign? The plus sign is outside the quotes, and it is called a concatenation operator, a concatenator. What it does is it appends things together. You can append text together. You can append a text and a variable. You can append variable and text. You can append two variables together. You can append all sorts of things together, and that's what this concatenation does. So right here, the first one, when I said system out print S, what does it output? What is the S output, you guys? It's the value, yeah. What is the value? 0. So it's going to output 0 so that you understand that. What is the next line output? The letter S. So you're going to just see that S without the quotes, right? And then the next line will output it together. And what the term is called concatenation. So I'll actually break a line here and I'll put it ahead of it. I'll say concatenates text with a variable. Concatenation, the concept of that is just appending them together, placing them next to each other, and that should work like that. So if you compile it and run it, now you found a way to take a value of a variable that can change throughout the program and make it more descriptive by explaining what that is, placing it into sentences, placing it into text. We okay so far? Make sense? Now, I want to go back and help you before I shut this video down. I want to go back and help you understand terms. First of all, when we made the variable named score, did I ever use that variable again? No, because I never even gave it a value. It needs a value before I can use it. I never even gave it to it, so I kind of ignored it. That variable is not even being used in this program. I then created a brand new variable named S, and I assigned a value 0 to it. So it had a value. Notice the equal sign is kind of opposite math. A lot of people want to put the number on one side and the variable on the other. You always start with the variable name on the left. Okay? You try to swap it around, it wouldn't work. So you start with the type, the name, and what you're going to put in there. And what I'm going to say is this is not called declaring. I haven't used the name for it, but it's exactly what you would think it is. It's initializing. When I ask you, let me cap it so it stands out. When I create a variable but give it a value, which happens more often than not, create a variable but give it a value right in the beginning,